So I don't know. We'll see how that goes. But, all right, so right now it's September 23rd. You getting feedback? Or you can hear okay? Yeah, okay. In 1 week and 1 day, it will be October 2019. And I want October to stand out to you this year because it's the only month in history in which we're going to stop calling John Henry Cardinal Newman blessed. Normally, to be called blessed or blessed is a good thing, but the church, she will ask us to stop. In this case, it's not a bad thing, though, because we all know what comes after blessed. On October 13th, a Sunday, John Henry Newman and 4 others will join the canon of those called saint. So in preparing this short presentation, I was really moved by my own desire that you all really get to know John Henry Newman. Maybe you do. I want to make the case that Newman is a saint for all of us. Sally Axworthy, she's the British ambassador to the Holy See, the Vatican. She has called Newman a truly global Briton. And I think he does have global or broad appeal. We'll talk about that. But first, a little background. Okay, so it's easy to remember Newman's dates because he basically spans the 1800s. He was born at the beginning in 1801, and he died of pneumonia 89 years later in 1890. Smack in the middle of his life, in 1845, he was received into the Catholic Church. So yes, he was a convert. He began his confession actually the evening of October 8th, confessed through the night, and was received into the church on October 9th of that year, 1845. He had resigned from his position at Oxford 2 years prior, where he had been immensely influential. He was leaving the Anglican Church. He was leaving what he knew so well. In fact, the last sermon he preached as an Anglican is titled, "The Parting of Friends." And I can only imagine that he gave it that title with some emotion. Well, okay, let's talk about his broad appeal. So he'd make a great saint for so many different circumstances that I can't cover them all, but just briefly, he could be the patron saint of, for example, those who read the local newspaper. The localer, the better. And if you want to know why, you'll just have to find me after. He's a saint for anyone who has ever felt loyal to their alma mater, or really anyone who has ever stepped foot on a college campus and felt a little bit of its specialness. If you're an entrepreneur, or if you're in the hard sciences, he can help you. If you have a conscience, hopefully all of us, he's sometimes been called the doctor of conscience. If you have ever been really convicted of something but you just don't have the words to explain it, he can encourage you. For musicians, poets, for anyone who wants to write a bestseller, gosh, maybe just pray for us all. But now, because of his vast writings and his vast intellect and his vast influence on the university system, some people speculate, this is modern speculation, that he'll be a patron saint of scholars or intellectuals. So, if any of you in the room are a scholar or an academic, then Newman's your guy. Maybe, like me, you're not a scholar. But you found yourself with a desire for friendship. Newman is still your guy. So loneliness, and we just even saw some statistics about this, about feeling rejection, right, or isolation. Loneliness is so prevalent, so please ask John Henry Newman to pray for you and assist you. He had a terrific capacity for friendship. As you know, he was elevated to cardinal, John Henry Cardinal Newman. He was never actually a bishop, but he took as his motto, cor ad cor loquitur, means heart speaks to heart. So this is a fundamental disposition to have in our relationship with Christ, but I think it's also an apt description of the deep friendships Newman had, men and women. He wrote 20,000 letters. If you're like me, and you fall behind in your texts and emails, and you find it a stretch to keep up with friends despite the best intentions, then this is both impressive and inspiring, and he can pray for us. So maybe he is the patron saint of making time for deep friendship, but then it was also said of Newman that he was never less alone than when alone. In other words, even when he was alone with himself, he was in good company. So, if you're someone who gets energized or recharged by spending time alone, or uses alone time to reset, what we might call introversion, then again, John Henry Newman, he can be your saint. For those of you with English heritage, I don't know, anyone in the crowd? He's a saint for you. So when he died in 1890, the London Times published the following: "Whether Rome canonizes him or not, he will be canonized in the thoughts of pious people of many creeds in England." Did you know that His Royal Highness, the Prince of Wales, so that's Charles, he will be attending the canonization next month. The press release said that Newman's canonization will be such a significant and joyful moment for this country. He is definitely a son of England, and maybe just for all of us who speak English. I don't have any English blood, so I'll claim him still. On a more serious note, you might consider taking him as your patron if you're a convert, and even more so if you've lost friends because of your conversion, or even just by taking your Catholic faith more seriously. Honestly, many felt betrayed by his conversion. William Gladstone, the longtime Prime Minister of Great Britain, called Newman's succession the greatest loss to the English Church, at least since Wesley. He was prominent, he was well known, and this is in England with a deep history of persecution against Catholics. A bias which at best meant you were a second-class citizen, and at worst resulted in violence and martyrdom. We're talking about Christians persecuting Christians here. I think even as recently as 2013, there was a law that if an heir to the throne married a Catholic, that heir had to relinquish their place in the line of succession. I mean, Guy Fawkes Day is still celebrated, etc. Newman gave up his career, his promising place at Oxford. One of his sisters actually accused him of trying to convert her husband to Catholicism, which wasn't true, but she never spoke to him again. But no one is canonized because they're a great scholar, or because they're an introvert, or because they're English. John Henry Newman will be canonized because of his heroic virtue, his holiness, his love, his adherence to Christ. When, as a Catholic, he founded an oratory, he did it in the poorer, third-class city of Birmingham rather than the world-class London, and he loved the people he served. He spent a great deal of time hearing confessions. He served the poor. Some of you have perhaps been in, picture it, it's a simple, spare chapel, crucifix on the wall, and next to the crucifix, the words, "I thirst." These chapels are all over the world, and I'm describing the chapel of the Missionaries of Charity. They always have that, "I thirst." These are Mother Teresa's sisters. They give their lives in wholehearted free service to the poorest of the poor. That's the fourth vow they take. Now, if you ever have the chance to go to Mass with them, stay for the short set of prayers that they pray together immediately afterward. Among them is a beautiful prayer, the second half of which is a close adaptation of John Henry Newman's own words. Yes, Mother Teresa gave her sisters words from John Henry Newman to aid and sustain them in their service to the poor. This is a man of global appeal. There is speculation that Newman could someday be named a Doctor of the Church, a title that's been bestowed only 36 times in the Church's long history. He has something to say to us, and he wants us to act. He actually has a bias in favor of action, not for calculation. He said, "Calculation never made a hero." It's a question we can all ask ourselves. What moves us to heroic action, to venture? He quoted St. Ambrose, "It was not by means of logic that God chose to save his people." Right? I'll quote Newman for a few sentences, and as I do, you can imagine Christ encountering people in the Gospels. The heart is commonly reached not through reason, but through the imagination, by means of direct impressions, by the testimony of facts and events, by history, by description. Persons influence us, voices melt us, looks subdue us, deeds inflame us. Many a man will live and die upon a dogma. No man will be a martyr for a conclusion. No one, I say, will die for his own calculations. He dies for realities, end quote. I think immediately of St. Peter, who wept when Christ looked at him after his denial. Right? Voices melt us, looks subdue us, Newman says. I'll close with a prayer now, and it's the very one, actually, that was used in the adaptation prayed by the Missionaries of Charity. If it's good enough for them to pray every day after they've received Holy Communion, good enough, I think, for this. So, I adore thee, O my God, as the true and only light. Stay with me, and then I shall begin to shine as thou shinest, so to shine as to be a light to others. The light, O Jesus, will be all from thee. None of it will be mine, no merit to me. It will be thou who shinest through me upon others. Oh, let me thus praise thee in the way which thou dost love best, by shining on all those around me. Give light to them as well as to me. Light them with me, through me. Teach me to show forth thy praise, thy truth, thy will. Make me preach thee without preaching, not by words, but by my example and by the catching force, the sympathetic influence of what I do, by my visible resemblance to thy saints, and the evident fullness of the love which my heart bears to thee. Blessed John Henry Cardinal Newman, pray for us. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen.